Tonight's bold question, did George Zimmerman kill with hatred or spite? That's what the prosecution has to show to prove second-degree murder. Hatred or spite, proving either one could be the difference between murder and self-defense for the shooting of Trayvon Martin. Today, day one inside the Sanford, Florida room, sides laying out their cases during opening statements to the 6 women of the Seminole County jury. Brian Smith is standing by with our in-studio jury. 6 women in the front row, 6 more jurors behind them. Do they believe George Zimmerman killed with hatred or spite? We'll find out by the end of the hour when they deliver their verdict. Joining us tonight at the courthouse in Sanford, HLN legal correspondent Jean Casares. Also at the courthouse, helping us understand Florida law, TV's Judge Alex. Joining us from Orlando, Central Florida's go-to criminal defense attorney, Mark Nejane. She represented Casey Anthony and music producer Phil Spector. Linda Kenny Bodden is in New York. With us from our HLN After Dark shooting scene recreation, HLN law enforcement analyst and resident detective, Mike Brooks. In studio tonight, criminal defense attorneys from Atlanta, Ashley Merchant. From New York, Joey Jackson. From California, Darren Kavanoki. From Atlanta, Esther Panich. And from Florida, John Phillips. And we begin with day one, opening statements, both sides outlining their cases, previewing the evidence in the trial that may divide the nation. Florida versus George Zimmerman, murder or self-defense?
Good morning. Punks. These they always get away. Those were the words in that defendant's head just moments before he pressed that pistol into Trayvon Martin's chest and pulled the trigger.
This is where Zimmerman got punched in the face.
That George Zimmerman was in his car and was told not to follow Trayvon Martin, and he did anyway. That is absolutely untrue.
He said that Trayvon Martin had him down on the ground and covered his mouth and his nose. His nose that was bleeding already. Well, they looked at Trayvon Martin's hands. There was no blood on them.
The state will call your first witness, please.
Chad Joseph. Chad Joseph, please. Did Trayvon Martin ask you if you wanted anything before he left for the store?
Yes.
And what was that?
Skittles.
I'd like to tell you a little joke. Knock, knock. Who's there? George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman, who? All right, good. You're on the jury. Nothing?
Wow. Wow. What a moment inside that courtroom. Day one of the trial. Let's go down to Sanford, Florida. HLN legal correspondent Jean Casares joins us. Jean, a lot of things happened today, a lot of moments. What's your headline tonight?
It was a huge day, Vinny. I think my headline, when the prosecution opening began with such passion and such strength, I literally jumped in that courtroom. I didn't know he was going to come out with what he came out with, the passion and state of mind, according to the prosecution, of George Zimmerman, and really painting a picture of Trayvon Martin just simply going to the 7-Eleven, while at the very same time George Zimmerman had a loaded gun in his waistband with a bullet right in the chamber to shoot somebody. I mean, that was quite a picture to paint. As far as the defense, beyond the joke, meticulous the defense was, going through so many pieces of evidence that you, the jury, will see as this trial unfolds, and painting a picture of George Zimmerman on the ground with Trayvon Martin mounted over him, pounding his head into that cement. And they said there is an eyewitness who saw that.
All right, Jean, our cameras and microphones picked up a lot of things inside that courtroom. Was there anything that caught your attention that perhaps we didn't see on television today?
When the 911 call was played, where the screams are heard, I had seen Trayvon Martin's mother just almost from the beginning, Vinny. She was shaking in her seat. Her body was just uncontrollably shaking. But she stood up. She couldn't take it, and she walked out. And there was a pastor sitting in the row behind her, a female pastor, who immediately followed her, and I heard the pastor say to the deputy, "Is she okay?" And that was before lunch. Pastor came back in, but Trayvon's mother did not. She's very emotional about this, obviously.
Absolutely. An emotional day, a powerful day, day one. Ryan, I mean, a lot of moments today. And again, it comes back to the victim's family, and Sabrina Fulton had to leave the courtroom today.
And how hard it must have been for her to be in that courtroom, waiting all this time for these moments, and this trial probably brought a lot of emotions up to her. So we've got our in-studio jury right here, and before the end of the show, they are going to decide on our bold question: did George Zimmerman kill with hatred or spite? This is something, an element that the prosecution has to prove in order to prove second-degree murder, and that's what George Zimmerman is on trial for. So we've got our 6 women in front, just like the Zimmerman jury, but we're going to let everybody vote. Hey, I got a quick question for you. Let's talk about this joke. It was on everybody's lips today. The joke by Don West was a good idea. Yes or no? Vote for me. Overwhelming no. Overwhelming no. You got jurors shaking their heads. Nobody's happy about this. Marsha, what did you think? Tell me what you thought about the joke.
When I ran it through my head with the right affect, I thought it was funny. But you know what? It's something everybody's going to remember.
It is. It is. And, you know, you make a good point. Maybe it would have been different with the right affect, and it was also the timing of it right after the prosecution statement, which was so somber. Now, Missy, what were your thoughts?
If you have to preface a joke by saying this may be inappropriate, then you probably really shouldn't say it.
You got the lawyers over there clapping. Yeah, unbelievable. All right, Vinny. Yeah. You know what? Maybe she should have been on the defense team.
Yeah, and it's so true. And you were wondering what he was going to say. Then the knock joke came out. So from all my experts tonight that we have lined up everywhere, give me one word, just one word, to describe that knock-knock joke. Ashley Merchant.
Distasteful.
Joey Jackson.
Ill-advised.
Darren Kavanaugh.
Nermy-churish, Nermy-esque, and amateurish.
Esther Panich.
Epic fail.
John Phillips.
Repugnant.
Mike Brooks, one word to describe that knock-knock joke.
Stupid.
Gene Casares, you were there. One word to describe that knock-knock joke.
Surprising.
Judge Alex.
Disrespectful.
Linda Kenny Bond, one word to describe the knock-knock joke.
Hyphenated, Vinny, as usual. Noxious noctambulist.
Mark Nejane, one word to describe that knock-knock joke.
Painful.
Yeah, painful. Painful. I still can't believe it happened. And it was the first thing, and there's something about primacy and recency, and I don't know if they're going to be able to shake this off, but we shall see. It went on for 2 hours and 38 minutes. Still ahead, our verdict on tonight's bold question. Did George Zimmerman kill with hatred or spite? We're going to break down the F's. Plus, we're taking you inside the neighborhood to the spot where the shooting occurred. Our brand new recreated shooting scene debuts in just minutes right here on HLN After Dark.
How did you come to know Tracy Martin and Trayvon Martin?
That's my mom's boyfriend.
And how would you describe your relationship with Trayvon Martin?
Good.
Were the two of you close?
Yes.
Was Trayvon Martin at your residence that afternoon?
Yes.
And what were the two of you doing?
Watching TV and playing a game.
Did Trayvon Martin ask you if you wanted anything before he left for the store?
Yes.
And what was that?
Skittles.
The first witness called by the prosecution, the young man who was supposed to get that bag of Skittles. Our bold question tonight: did Zimmerman kill with hatred or spite? It's important for the prosecution. It's what they need to prove in order to prove second-degree murder, the state of mind of George Zimmerman when he killed Trayvon Martin. Well, opening statements began today. Let's take a look at the prosecution.
Good morning. Punks. These they always get away. Those were the words in that grown man's mouth as he followed in the dark a 17-year-old boy, a 28-year-old grown man, somebody who wanted to be a police officer, somebody who had called the police numerous times about crime in his neighborhood. This defendant riding around in his car, but with a Kel-Tec 9mm semi-automatic pistol in a ready-to-fire position. He told the dispatcher, Sean Nofke, he saw someone that was real suspicious, somebody that looked like they were up to no good. Those were the words in that defendant's head. Just moments before, he pressed that pistol into Trayvon Martin's chest and pulled the trigger. Zimmerman did not shoot Trayvon Martin because he had to. He shot him for the worst of all reasons, because he wanted to.
From the prosecution there, and you saw the time of their opening as well. But part of what they have to show is that George Zimmerman killed with or that's our open for the jury take on what they thought about opening statements. Leon, you were watching closely. What'd you think about the prosecution's opening?
Absolutely. I'd call it a leadoff double in the World Series. I'd call it an alley-oop dunk in the finals of the NBA off the tip for the prosecution.
Ooh, wow.
Absolutely. Hit all
That's
their points.
strong.
Got the right witnesses, hit all their points.
Okay, let me come over here to Carol. You also had a point about the openings. How did you feel about that?
I thought it was clear and concise. I just wish the defense had been also.
Okay, so you didn't feel the same thing for the defense?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Okay, all right, all right. You know what? Let's come over here, our juror number 2. What did you think about openings?
Charismatic.
Charismatic, that's it. You saw it, and the guy really blew you away.
Right.
Okay. A lot of people were commenting on how handsome he was. Frankly, what'd you think?
He had some good looks.
Doesn't hurt, right? Oh, by the way, you had a question about the language. Tell us that question.
Why was the language blocked out?
Well, it's TV. It's TV. We got to do some of that. But there was a lot of foul language used in those openings.
Well, he said a lot of foul things to the police.
Mm-hmm.
I think he overstepped his boundaries when he went after him. But I thought the state did a very good job on opening. He was precise, to the point, and he got his point across. That's all you want.
Wow, Vinny, exactly what a lawyer wants to hear people say, jurors say, about their opening statements.
33 minutes he did it in this guy. John Guy, he was good.
Yes, that was impressive.
Yes. I found his looks off-putting.
The 6 female jurors didn't.
Yes, very smart.
I mean, he was sharp, he was to the point, and he kept your attention the whole way.
And he didn't have
That's
a
what
note.
openings are about. I mean, what you want to do is you want to lay it out in chronological order. You want to be passionate. You want to lay out your theory of the case, and I think he did that effectively.
But what was most impressive is that in the prosecution's opening, they told a story. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. It went somewhere. It was logical. It was powerful. I give him high marks.
He didn't use any notes. He looked right at the jurors and made a connection with them, and he was very compelling, very persuasive.
I've been in victims meetings. I've been in victims meetings with this guy where he talks to my clients who've lost somebody, and he is powerful. I mean, when it comes down to it, you saw it today, but wait till the entire trial. He is good.
He was good. It was a good open, and he did it in 33 minutes. Well, my mystery reveal tonight, will it have an impact on how our jury votes on tonight's bold question? We'll find out in just a few minutes. And Mike Brooks is standing by in our brand new shooting scene recreation. Our in-studio jury gets an up-close perspective of what the neighborhood looks like coming up on HLN After Dark.
I'm wearing my dog earrings and necklace for a reason. Mr. Defense Attorney, when you've picked a jury good for you and it has 2 women who rescue stray dogs on its jury, you shouldn't suggest that your client bought a gun to kill his neighbor's dog. Not a good defense move.
No more bad jokes, I promise that. I'm convinced it was the delivery, though. I really thought that was funny. I'm sorry if I offended anyone about that.
Don West's apology for his knock-knock joke after the lunch break, but our bold question tonight is, did Zimmerman kill with hatred or spite? That's what the prosecution has to prove. They've got to prove Zimmerman's state of mind to get a second-degree murder conviction. While we showed you the highlights from the prosecution opening statement, let's take a look at the defense.
I think the evidence will show that this is a sad case, that there are no monsters here. George Zimmerman is not guilty of murder. In less than 10 minutes from him first seeing Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman would be sucker punched in the face, have his head pounded on concrete, and wind up shooting and tragically killing Trayvon Martin. He shot Trayvon Martin in self-defense after being viciously attacked. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times that Trayvon Martin was unarmed. What the evidence will show you is that's not true. Trayvon Martin armed himself with the concrete sidewalk and used it to smash George Zimmerman's head.
2 hours and 39 minutes for the defense is open. They took a lot more time than the prosecution did, but we'll have to see if that resonated with the jury. Check with our jury, see how they feel about the defense's opening statement. Danielle, what did you think?
I think that the exhaustiveness of the opening was probably to bolster their case more, because based on the witnesses that were put on the stand earlier today, they were real in and out, like 5 minutes tops, and I don't think that from a defense perspective that would give them enough time to give their case a chance.
So they were longer because they wanted to establish their case.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Mia, let me get your thought. Defense open. What'd you think?
Directionless. I thought it was pretty directionless. I didn't see, certainly didn't tell a story. I felt like he was all over the place. It was like he was rebutting the prosecution's opening statement. It just seemed real directionless to me.
Okay. One more thought. Shay, I want to come to you. You all had some strong feelings about this open, but you did as well.
Yeah, I just think that the joke was in very bad taste for the parents. I don't know if he was grasping for straws when he was shot down by the judge about telling the personal story, and it didn't have any direction, and I just believe they really needed the time that they asked for.
Yeah, there was that awkward moment in the beginning when the judge shot him down a little bit.
Right.
He almost kind of gave that look.
And I think that was like his attempt at a recovery. I don't think that was planned.
Okay. I mean, it's something you would think would be planned, but Vinny, not a lot of positive thoughts on this end.
Okay, well, let's talk to our experts now. We know who had a longer day, the defense at 2 hours and 39 minutes versus 33 minutes for the prosecution, but who had a better day? Prosecution or defense here, day one of the trial? Ashley Merchant.
Prosecution.
Prosecution. Joey.
Day one, prosecution.
Darren.
Day one, prosecution.
Esther.
It pains me, but the prosecution.
John Phillips.
My state of Florida, prosecution.
Prosecution had a better day. Let's go to Mike Brooks. Mike Brooks, who had a better day, prosecution or defense?
No doubt at all, prosecution.
Linda Kenny Bodden, prosecution or defense here on day one?
Prosecution, Vinny, for P for Politan. Big P.
It's a shutout. I mean, no one... Now, how bad of a thing is that?
It should be, because this is the state's case. The state goes first.
But it was two opening statements.
It was.
I remember when we were down in Orlando, and we were talking about one opening statement only, and it wasn't from the prosecution.
Yeah, but it's important, as Ashley said, what you want to do is start with a bang, and I think they did that. It's far from over, to be clear, but I think the prosecution did in laying out their theory and bringing forward brief witnesses and doing what they're supposed to do. We're a long way from home, but today was there.
A long way from home, and the... Well, but hang on a second, Mike Brooks. I'll defend that knock-knock joke. Yes, the defense... Yes, I can. The defense was like a rudderless ship, and the defense attorney was struck by the good idea fairy by launching into that knock-knock joke. But here's the deal. What he's trying to do is establish some relationship. It's a normal thing that happens to me all the time. Something looks great in my head, and when it comes out of my mouth, not so well executed.
Establish the relationship?
Still ahead, ladies and gentlemen, our verdict on tonight's bold question. Did George Zimmerman kill with hatred or spite? Plus, we're taking you inside the neighborhood to the spot where the shooting happened. Our brand new recreated shooting scene debuts next on HLN After Dark.
Darren, you know what would have been a great idea to come out of the defense's mouth? Instead of saying George Zimmerman said, here's my bloody nose, or do I have blood? How about asking, is Trayvon alive? Is the kid alive? Can I do anything for him? Can you get him help? Can you give him CPR? That would have been a good idea.
You are looking at our recreation of the shooting scene, our recreation of that place where George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin clashed. This is what the trial's all about. And so we've recreated it on table and also the entire neighborhood. Vinny, Mike Brooks here, also our jury, and we're considering the bold question. Did Zimmerman kill with hatred or spite? All right, Vinny, show our jury what they're looking at.
All right, let's start here. Let's take a look at the whole neighborhood so you understand a little bit of perspective. This is a scale model. This is the clubhouse where George Zimmerman first makes the call. This is where he said he parked and called police non-emergency, then proceeded down Retreat View Circle, made the right on the street that he didn't remember the name of, Twin Trees, followed that around to the left, and then parked at the left just before the bank here. Then he and I guess Trayvon must have gone up the sidewalk to this area, and this is where we believe the confrontation took place, on that infamous T area. So what I want to do right now, if we could just pull this out, we could pull this out, and let me show you, ladies and gentlemen, that T intersection of the sidewalk. If you could just step back here, and we bring Mike Brooks in, really the most significant place in this entire trial, because this is the area right here where George Zimmerman said that he and Trayvon Martin, ran into one another, one side saying one thing, one side saying something else. But tell us about some of the evidence that's found around here.
Well, we look around, and these are the actual kind of evidence markers that were used by the Sanford police, Vinny, and it kind of paints a picture of what happened here at the crime scene. We see this marker, this, I guess it's for a sprinkler system. That was kind of right where, at the sidewalk, where everything took place. But we have evidence spread out. Evidence marker number 1, that's the car key of George Zimmerman, and that was attached to a small flashlight, the one that we think maybe he was hitting, it didn't work real well. This is a 7-Eleven bag on number 2. We don't know exactly what role that played in it yet. Where number 3, there was a white bag here. That was that Walmart bag that we heard about today during openings, Vinny, that they used to try to seal up the sucking chest wound after Trayvon was shot. Then we get over here, number 7. That was Trayvon's cell phone. Number 5 was that larger flashlight that we heard about today, that there were 2 flashlights, not just one. Number 4 was a first aid kit. That was used by the officers who were there first to try to, render aid to Trayvon. And number 8, that was the shell casing from the Kel-Tec 9mm, but there was it said on the shell casing 9mm for millimeter Luger S and B. So this kind of gives you a better picture of where all the evidence happened. And this is, this is the actual crime scene right here. Yeah. So everything took place, and we think that everything in the shooting and the beat somewhere between here and here, because that was close to this little marker.
Absolutely. And the other part of this T is, if you remember seeing that when George Zimmerman goes back the next day, the videotape, he walks police up to the corner going this way, and he says he's trying to get here to Retreat View Circle to get an address, and then he's walking back this way, and if you follow past the T, when we go back to that small scale model, this would take us directly back to George Zimmerman's car. So this is sort of an outline of the area where he was. I think timeline is going to have a lot to do with this case. Absolutely. Because I walked it. I went down there. And from where George Zimmerman said he hung up with police to the T intersection, about 30 seconds. To get all the way back to his car, about a minute. But the time between he hung up and the confrontation, about 2 minutes and change. So what was going on during those 2 minutes? Crucial.
Oh, the timing is key. A couple questions from our jurors, wondering some of the same things our viewers are probably wondering. Zachary, our high school football player, has a question.
I mean, if it's a gated community and just a community in general with houses and apartments, shouldn't there be like video cameras around for security? I mean, I wouldn't feel safe if it was there was no cameras.
Did you see cameras in the area, Vinny, when you were there?
They did have cameras, but they weren't working.
At the time, it wasn't a totally gated community. That's why Trayvon was able to cut through the houses. There was no gate all the way around the whole townhouse complex.
Okay, one more question from our juror number 11. Mia, what do you have?
I was wondering if there was any blood evidence on the sidewalk. If his head was beat repeatedly on the sidewalk, I would expect to see blood there.
Yeah, not there.
Not there.
Not there. And I don't know how well the crime scene, it was raining that night. I don't know if that had impact. I'm not sure, but I didn't see any photos of blood on the sidewalk.
I guarantee you, they most likely would have looked to try to find, because as a crime scene investigator, you want to find exactly the exact spot where that confrontation took place, and there was no blood evidence that was found.
Yeah, that's a critical part of this case. Now, you've seen the shooting scene recreation. Next up, the evidence room.
I'm so glad Judge Alex is here, my friend, because I want to know about prosecutors in Florida. They always try to get junk science in. This judge did not allow the audio experts in, unlike some other case I know with junk science. What gives it, Judge? What gives it with prosecutors in Florida?
At any point that evening, did you hear anything that sounded like an argument or a gunshot from outside your residence?
No.
Did you ever go outside your residence that evening?
No.
Did you ever recall looking outside your residence that evening?
No.
Did Trayvon Martin come home that night?
No.
Did you try calling Trayvon Martin's cell phone again that evening after you had spoken with him the first time?
Yes.
And what happened when you called his cell phone?
No one answered.
Tonight's bold question, did George Zimmerman kill with hatred or spite? Our in-studio jury is going to render a verdict at the end of the show, but they need to hear evidence. So Vinny Politan's over at the HLNTV.com evidence room.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm here in the HLNTV.com evidence room with House Detective Mike Brooks. And remember, all the evidence I'm going to show you, you can see online. Just go to HLNTV.com/afterdark. Mike, let's start with, ill will, spite, hatred. The prosecutor tried to prove that today, or is going to try to prove that during the course of the trial, through some of the words of George Zimmerman himself, or using the F word, the A word, to describe his neighborhood. Let's take a listen to what the prosecutors talk about.
Which way is it going?
Down towards the other entrance of the neighborhood.
Which entrance is that he's heading towards?
The back entrance.
Are you following?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay.
I'll take a listen to his second one now. Take a listen to this one.
Something's wrong with him. Yeah. He's coming to check me out. He's got something in his hands. I don't know what his deal is.
Okay, just let me know if he does anything, okay?
Over here.
Yeah, we got him on the way. Just let me know if this guy does anything else.
Okay. These they always get away.
You know, Mike, we need some context for these statements that Zimmerman's making. It's about what's going on in his neighborhood, and the prosecutor playing other phone calls that he fired.
Exactly. So is it Trayvon Martin with hatred or spite, or was it anyone who possibly be a perp that was passed through that neighborhood, Vinny?
Okay, now, how did the defense deal with this hatred or spite? They talked about this case as being a self-defense case, and they basically said Trayvon himself was armed, Mike, and this was a little controversial. Let's take this down about Trayvon being armed during his opening statement.
If I've heard it once, I've heard it a time. Trayvon Martin was unarmed. What the evidence will show you is that's not true. Trayvon Martin armed himself with the concrete sidewalk and used it to smash George Zimmerman's head. No different than if he picked up a brick or bashed a head against a wall. That is a deadly weapon.
Mike, think about that argument saying that the concrete sidewalk was the deadly weapon Trayvon Martin's armed with.
You know, there's a lot of things that can be used as a deadly weapon, Vinny. I thought he was going to say that he was armed with his fists. But, you know, is the jury going to think that that's a stretch by saying that he was armed with a concrete sidewalk? You know, are they trying to say that Trayvon Martin got him in a position by that sidewalk because he knew he was there to beat his head against the sidewalk? That's what the jury has to think about.
All right, and again, they're saying self-defense is what this case is all about.
Right.
The prosecution is saying this is someone who was motivated because he hated or had spite for what was happening in the neighborhood. That's going to be interesting to see how that issue plays, because there were prior burglaries, there were other instances, and all these phone calls that George Zimmerman was making.
Right, and that one person who near Frank Taffy's house, his neighbor, who he saw there smoking, and he called, they got away. You know, is that these a-holes always get away? Is he talking to other burglars or possible burglars in that neighborhood? The jury has a lot to think about tonight, Vinny.
Absolutely. Two sides to the argument. You've got questions about the case. Our experts have answers in 15 seconds or less.
What led Zimmerman to kill Trayvon Martin? Our online poll, let's see how you responded. 9% say ill will, hatred, or spite. 3% say an indifference to human life, both elements of second-degree murder. 61% say fear of his own life. 27% none of the above. Sounds like a heavy leaning towards self-defense.
Let me tell you, that big yellow 61%, that's
all right.
Hey, you got questions, we have answers. 15 seconds or less, our expert ready.
Let's start with Twitter. Jessica says, will the prosecution show pictures of Trayvon Martin's injuries? If not, why?
John Phillips.
It's the lack of injuries that they're going to show. His right hand, his dominant hand, completely free. No scrapes, no scratches, nothing under the fingernails. The left hand had the tiniest little mark right there on the hand. Clearly, these lack of injuries are irrelevant.
All right. Next up, it's Aaron. Why was the 7-Eleven clerk relevant?
Esther Panich.
This is a good question. This is the witness who can bring in the videotape. You need the person who was there at the time to authenticate the tape, and the person behind the counter that night helping Trayvon is the person to do it. That's why he's relevant.
Okay, next up, Shalenda. Does the fact that Zimmerman only shot once mean anything, or could it mean anything?
Linda Kenny Bodden, 15 seconds.
Well, I think it means something with regard to the screaming, because as the prosecutor said today, as soon as the shot occurred, the screaming stopped. So it's not really the shot in and of itself. It's what the shot means and what the lack of screaming after it that's important.
Everybody moving quickly tonight.
All right, let's go to Facebook. David's got an interesting question. What do attorneys try to accomplish in their opening statements?
Ashley Merchant.
You know, an opening statement is the jury's first time to hear the story of a case, because you're thinking about this jury who's never heard anything about this case other than what happened in voir dire. So I always think of it as having dinner with friends who know nothing about what I do, but I'm trying to explain a case that I'm working on, and how can I sum that up?
Oh, that's good.
And you usually tell a knock-knock joke to your friends.
Oh, boy. Okay, Roxy, this trial seems to be moving faster than the Jodi Arias trial. Is this the usual pace of trial?
The usual pace. Let's go to Mark Nejane. 15 seconds, Mark.
This judge, Judge Nelson, is running a tight ship. She's going to keep things moving, and she's going to keep it contained within those first few minutes. However, if the defense continues to slide, they might put him on the stand. That could take a lot longer. If one side gets desperate, they could open up the doors for a lot of extraneous matters. But if that doesn't happen, it's going to be a quicker trial.
All right. Anything's fast compared to the Jodi Arias trial. Let's take a look at the next one. Mark says, does it matter that Zimmerman didn't comply when the 911 operator told him not to follow Trayvon Martin? Is that relevant for his self-defense claim?
Mike Brooks, what do you think of that? 15 seconds.
You know, we heard today from the operator, not an officer, but an operator, that basically they do it to try for the safety of the person who's calling. But no, he didn't have to do what that operator said.
Well done, Mike.
All right, let's jump into HLNTV.com, see what our viewers have. Jennifer says, did Zimmerman break the law by following Trayvon Martin if he thought he was suspicious? If so, what's the law?
We need some law. Judge Alex, 15 seconds.
No, he didn't break the law by following. You can follow anybody that you think is suspicious, and it's not stalking unless you're doing it repeatedly to the same person. What was really ill-advised is getting out of the car when you're just a Crime Watch volunteer. You're supposed to report what you see, not participate.
Right at the buzzer.
All right, let's take a look at Drake. Will the defense attorney's joke and opening statements hurt Zimmerman?
Darren Kavanoki, 15 seconds.
2 seconds. I hope not. Oh, my. And maybe I just feel for him because I've thought so many things that looked brilliant in my head and came out not so great. There's a lot of miles to go in this case. Hopefully that will long be forgotten by the time the evidence causes the decision. See, there I go again.
He's overtime. He's overtime. All right, and another good question on relevance. Do you think the previous 911 call history is relevant in this case?
Joey Jackson, 15 seconds.
It is relevant. Look, the indicia for relevance is, does it make a fact any more likely? And here you're trying to show the conduct and behavior of Zimmerman. If you're the prosecution, you're going to say he's overzealous. If you're the defense, you're going to say he's protecting his neighborhood. So it cuts both ways.
All right, great questions tonight. Hey, you have your mystery reveal coming up, and our jury's got a verdict. Keep it right here on After Dark.
So I'm sitting in the courtroom. Every seat is taken. The moment has come for opening statements to begin, and suddenly the prosecutor says, I want to invoke the rule of sequestration. Any witness in this courtroom must leave. Well, the victim's family is excluded from that, but George Zimmerman's mother and father, they're on the prosecution's witness list. So as everyone watched, they had to stand up, get out in the aisle, turn around, and leave the courtroom. Opening statements then began.
Right there in the blue suit, he looked down where this was and said, mother.
Said, pardon my language, mother under his breath?
He never said pardon my language.
No, that's me saying it.
Oh.
I don't use profanity.
No, well, I was walking in, and it was real quick, like I said, was under his breath. What he's concerned with.
I object. He's badgering the witness. It's a simple statement. Now he's coming up with some fantastical thing that Mr. Martin would think he was going to get the door smashed in his face, and that's what I said.
Okay, so let's stop this right now. I have told counsel before, first of all, no one talks over the other. The court reporter can only take one person down at a time.
Things got a little heated today before the first witness was even called in front of the jury today, as one of George Zimmerman's friends accuses Trayvon Martin's father of calling him the MF word 2 weeks ago at the door to the courtroom. The defense wanted Tracy Martin banned from court as a result of this alleged statement, but the judge denied the request, and Trayvon's father will remain inside. Well, now, before our jury renders its verdict on our bold question tonight, did Zimmerman kill with hatred or spite? Time to reveal what's in my mystery box. Take a look, folks. There it is, MySpace. Some old school social media. Tonight, we're specifically looking at the MySpace page of George Zimmerman from 2005. In it, he seems to hold some ill will towards some folks in his former Virginia neighborhood. Let me read his MySpace entry from back in 2005. I don't miss driving around scared to hit Mexicans walking on the side of the street. Soft bleeps, wannabe thugs, messing with people's cars. So, back in 2005, seems like Zimmerman had some bad things to say about at least one faction of people in his neighborhood. So, did he have any hatred or spite while living at the retreat at Twin Lakes? It's time for our jury to render a verdict on tonight's bold question, Ron.
Powerful evidence right there, Vinny. But the bold question, did Zimmerman kill with hatred or spite? I want you to go one by one. Give me your verdict. Juror number 1. No. Juror number 2, no. Juror number 3, yes. Juror number 4, yes. Juror number 5, yes. Juror number 6, yes. Juror number 7, yes. Juror number 8, yes. Juror number 9, no. Juror number 10, no. Juror number 11, yes. Juror number 12, yes. So it's 8-4. That George Zimmerman killed with hatred or spite. I want to start first, juror number 8 over here, Tony. He's participated in Neighborhood Watch before, and you say yes, he killed with hatred or spite.
Yes. It just seems like when he said those punks always get away with it, that he was really looking for trouble. And that when we were in Neighborhood Watch, we were told never to follow anybody, call 911 and let the police handle it.
Okay, that's a key part of it. The prosecution talking about see and report. Sounds like Tony's saying the same thing. We've got a bunch of yeses as well, but we've got some no's. Why do you say no?
I say no because as humans, we like to believe the best about ourselves, and there is not one of us sitting here on this panel or on Earth that has not said something to that extent, whether that crass or that, deliberate. And even that does not speak to our ability to murder someone. That's just a moment of passion, anger, frustration. And I can't say that just because someone stole the amount or broke into my car that's going to motivate me to murder someone.
So for you, it's not the hatred or spite. Okay, so that's key, Vinny, because hatred or spite, this is a big part of what the prosecution's trying to prove in proving second-degree murder.
What a great point by juror number 1, that concept of frustration versus hate. Where do you see this coming down? Because this is what you need for murder, too.
But aggravated manslaughter carries the same penalty in Florida as murder, too. So because he was under 18, if you nail manslaughter, you still have that second-degree felony.
So you're throwing in the towel on murder, sounds like.
I'm not. We haven't gotten that far. This is a guy that turned off his mother's electricity. He's not a good guy.
We still got that fear factor, though. I mean, look at what our what the poll online said. They think that fear was the biggest motivating factor, and that's what the defense needs.
And that's huge, because that goes right to the issue of self-defense. Fear is what you need in order to do what he did. And so, I don't know, Darren.
What's amazing in listening to the jurors and the comments is this case, more than any other I've seen in a long time, it's the lenses by which we view the world that impact the way we view this evidence. And it's extremely telling, and frankly, I would not be surprised if that's the reason for a hung jury.
All right.
I don't know that we're going to be hung. I think we're going to get a verdict, but I don't know that it's going to be for second-degree murder. I just don't see that they're going to have enough evidence to prove that the hatred and ill will.
Great job by our experts. Great job by our jury. That's it for HLN After Dark.